Welcome to episode 2. I'm here with head coach Alivia Roberts, and today we're going to be talking about pretty much Alivia. We want to know where she came from, what she's been doing, and what she's up to now. And I think she has some big news that she wants to share with us later, so I'm excited about that.
Yay.
Yeah. All right, Alivia, tell us the story.
Where do you want me to start?
So let's start about you getting into real estate, because I know most of your story is about coaching and consulting and developing that skill, but you started somewhere and it has a cool story too.
Yeah. So, let's see. So if we start back at, graduated high school, I didn't know where I wanted to be. Didn't think I wanted to be here. So I went to, I had a brother that lived in Texas, and he said, well, come over here. So I moved to Spring, Texas, or for anybody that isn't familiar with Spring, it's Tomball, Houston, it's all right there. And I was there from 2000 to 2006, and loved it. I found adult slow pitch softball. I grew up playing softball, so I played it, 4 nights a week. We played travel. It was awesome. An amazing group of people. And I had multiple jobs, most of them, because I was also going to college. So most of the jobs were, and I always had like 2 or 3 jobs, just because even back then, it was not the cheapest place to live. And yet, you got to do something. And so, and then the way that I got into real estate is my brother had gotten into real estate, and he had been attempting to talk me into it.
Brother, because you have quite a few of them.
Yeah, so 6.
Yeah.
I'm number 6, so I've got a baby brother. So this would have been number 4. Okay. So Chuck had his real estate license at this point.
Okay.
And which is a funny story, because Avery, the oldest brother, talked Chuck into getting his license. They were going to do it together. Mm-hmm. And then they both went to school at the same time, and yet Avery got really busy in construction, so he never took the test. And so he talked Chuck into doing it. I'm laughing
because it's Avery, and him getting distracted is not, it's not surprising.
Yeah. A squirrel. And that's, we all, right, as entrepreneurs, we have that ability, that shiny object. So his work really took off, and so he ended up not taking the test, but Chuck did, and then so Chuck was selling real estate. Chuck was living in Lafayette at the time, Lake Charles, and so he moved back home to West Monroe. We're actually from Columbia, which is even smaller, a smaller town, and yet we were coming back to West Monroe. And he was doing his best to talk me into coming and selling real estate, and I couldn't see it. Mm-hmm. And I was very much like, I got bills, like that's a commission, like what? And and then my dad died. And he and I weren't so close. My parents they'd been married for like 22 years. They got divorced when I was in, I think, 3rd or 4th grade. And he had some challenges. And so we weren't really close. And yet with Chuck now living back in West Monroe, it was myself and one other brother that didn't live here locally. And so it was coming home through all that stuff, realizing that I wasn't as close to the family as I would like to be. Like all my brothers at that time, except for me and my little brother, had kids. Yeah. And so, I'm just missing out on that, and family's really important to me. And so, I decided, okay, I'm going to come home. Well, so Chuck was like, get your license. And because I was like, what am I going to do when I come home? And at the time, like, again, I was in my early 20s, and I was managing a Kids Are Kids. And so we had about 262 kids from like 6 weeks of age to after schoolers that we would go, the bus would come back and pick them up. And I managed that. I was the assistant manager.
So can I just say that you and I are both friends, and we have worked together, and you have coached and consulted me, my companies. I can't ever see you running a daycare, because I feel like you just like, it's not like hey, we can't do that. It's like the Alivia, like, I'm going to kill you.
No, well, that's the cool part. Like, I'm the fun aunt. And I am also like, I'm a big believer in boundaries and expectations. You let kids know what the boundaries are, the expectations, and you can have fun within those perimeters.
Yeah. Did you make them make cold calls?
No doubt. Yeah. I no cold calls. I did when one of my older nephews, once I got into real estate, one of my older nephews, he was probably 9 or 10 at the time. I did teach him to send Facebook messages.
Okay.
And at 10 cents a pop, but he would send them, and he got really fast at it. So he was making $10 an hour, and individually messaged everybody in my Facebook, like what we talked about.
Before Facebook put a 20 or 25 message a day.
That's right. That's right. And like I said, he was making great money, and he loved it. So sometimes I'll put him to work pretty young.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Who was it? I was talking to somebody that knows your brother Avery, and he was like, "Yeah, Avery used to pay me $2 for every $1 sign I'd send them."
Yeah.
I was like, man, just putting all the kids to work.
Hey, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all about the work ethic.
That's right.
And it was interesting because and funny enough, when you talk about the daycare, like when I first started working there, I worked at the front desk, and I was also working at Hallmark, and I can't remember if I was also working at Academy at that point or if I was working at Walmart overnight. Mm-hmm. And so I just worked there for a few hours, and Lori Lyons, I'm still looking for her. So if anybody knows Lori Lyons that lives in or has had kids in the Spring, Texas area, I'm trying to get a hold of her. She was mentor, boss. She was like amazing. And as I started working for her, I impressed her enough that I was like, more hours. So then I remember the first time that I was actually like with the kids, they were going on a field trip and they needed another adult. And so I was there at the front desk, and they were like, "Hey, you come on the field trip." And so we all were responsible for like a certain number of kids. And I think mine were like 10. Mine had no fun that day because I was so scared. Like we went to a place with a bunch of people, so I was so scared that they were going to get abducted or something.
In a bubble the whole
time.
I'm
like, you're not getting lost on my watch. I'm not having that conversation with your parents. So the rule was like, if I can't see you, if you can't see me, that means I can't see you, and you can't go there. Mm-hmm. All the way to like, look, if for some reason you get lost or you get separated, you're going to find. I know a lot of times people tell kids like, find a cop. Well, when was the last time you just saw a cop randomly? Yeah. So I'm like, find a lady, let them know, and then we would have. I would always make sure they had a phone number, and they would have to.
Did you like getting phone number tattoos?
So these kids not, but my nieces and nephews do. Like I took them all to. I took it was me and I don't know 8 or 9 of my nieces and nephews. We went to a semi-professional baseball game. Uh-huh. And we're in the car, we're headed there, and I was the only adult, and which some of the kids were like 14, 15.
That's still stressful. I can't imagine.
Yeah, or 13 maybe was the oldest one. So yes, every one of them that weren't old enough to memorize my phone number, I wrote my phone number on there, and the rule was, for any reason, if you get lost, you can't find me, you sit down. I said, I will find you, and if somebody asks if they can help, you're going to say, because I don't want everybody roaming trying to find, I said, you're going to call my aunt. So like they had, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not gonna be the one that says, I'm never gonna have that conversation like, oh, I lost your kid to one of my brothers.
I just left Disney with one singular 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
My daughter, just to be clear.
Yeah.
I got dark real quick.
Yeah, that's right.
And let me tell you, like I had on a swivel the whole time. Like if I couldn't see her, I'm having mini freakouts.
Yes.
And so I can't imagine bringing 8 kids. That's ridiculous.
No, well, and it's all about, like, again, boundaries and rules. So whenever, and I'm a big fan of, like, your whole life should be like that. And the what's the expectation? So, before you get somewhere, hey, if this happens, what about this? What did you hear? And let them repeat it back. A lot of it's a lot like coaching. Mm-hmm. And then you go into, but you have to, teach them. And that's not to say they're always going to do exactly what you would ask, but at least they have some type of knowledge of what's the behavior, the acceptable behavior there.
Right.
Because I think about, like, when you come to my house or the nephews come to my house, like mine, I am the fun aunt. We're going to do adventures. We're going to go ride bikes. We're going to go hiking. We're going to be messy. and what's the parameter that has to fit into. And then when we go places, kind of the same thing, like, okay, hey, we're going to this person's house. These are some of the rules. You know, how do we behave when we're at other people's houses?
Don't touch the black wall.
Don't touch the wall. Yeah. So it's very, so all of that to say, what working there really helped me understand is set expectations. Mostly when we're frustrated with people, relationships, and things like that, is we haven't set the expectation up front of what I expect, what do you expect? Are we on the same page? And that's where we usually run into frustrations, is we haven't had that conversation or those expectations.
Yes. A mismatch of expectations can lead to building resentment, and building resentment will lead to toxicity in a relationship extremely quick.
Like this.
Yeah.
So I'm all about, like, let's have the conversation up front. What do I expect? What does that mean? What do we want to say about this when it's complete? What are some of the resources we're going to utilize? Like, all of those pieces. Now we're on the same page, and things change, so you continue to have some type of flow of that conversation, and yet 100%, like, I can think something, you think something. We haven't had that clarity of expectations, and all of a sudden, now we're frustrated because he's doing that, she's doing that, and you're like, it's just lack of expectation
and the
clarity,
clarity and a set expectation. And the perfect example of that was the other day. Me and you were supposed to go do something, and I said, I've had a poop emoji day, and you went, does that mean we're not meeting up, or you want to go have a drink?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I meant that I wanted to go meet up with you. And you're like, I just needed clarity.
Yeah.
Like, and we've had 2 or 3 of those moments where you were like, hey, look, I'm down for either scenario, but like, you haven't been clear about your expectation of the situation. Yeah. And so, yes, like, having a set, clear agreement and being in partnership is going to drive everything forward. Absolutely.
So that was the biggest thing that I learned there. And then especially when you're working with, parents. And so they have, when I started working in the rooms, the first room I ever worked in was like 6 weeks to crawling. And so you had these, parents that were dropping off their most precious pride and joy. I mean, it's scary. You're dropping this kid off to somebody that you hope is going to treat them well. And I mean,
that's scary.
Yeah.
That's a lot of trust.
A lot of trust.
Yeah.
And so what I realized early on is if I set that expectation with the parent, so like, hey, look, this is what's going to happen today. This is what we're doing. And then at the end of the day, this is what we did. This is what worked. Like, the trust level went up so high. Like, I remember this little boy named John, his cousin had been in the baby room, and now John's in the baby room. And I had done that with his parents, and we had video cameras, so the parents could see everything that was going on. But so I'm holding the baby. I went to go pick something up, and for anybody that's had babies, as they get older, they start to, like, they'll fling themselves forward. So I'm holding John. I go to pick that up, and he flings himself forward. Well, I had him securely, no problem, but he hit his head on the rocking chair, and I'm like, and make sure he's okay, put ice on the whole bit. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like, I'm going to have to call his parent and say, hey, this is what happened. And because I'd set up that conversation, the expectations and the trust, whenever I called this mom, this was her first kid. She was an older parent. And so, very much, what's the word? Like, on edge, maybe, because you're leaving your baby from, and because she knew who I was and how I, what I did with babies, she was able to accept that and go, hey, look, I get it. Like, babies do things, and I trust you. And so I think that's really important to create trust. You have to tell people what you do, hey, this is what we're going to expect, and then this is what I did. And the moment that something happens, have a conversation. I think a lot of times people are scared, or they avoid the conversation because they don't want somebody to be mad at them. And what you will realize is, by having the conversation and getting ahead of it, what people usually really get mad at is the hiding, the not knowing.
Right.
So the more upfront you can be with people, faster, the better. And that takes away your anxiety, their anxiety, and ensures that you have trust in a relationship.
Yeah. Addressing the problem quickly and effectively is extremely important to building trust, to a relationship, to teamwork, to anything that you want to happen symbiotically.
That's right. That's right. And that's a skill, right? I think sometimes people feel
worst.
Well, I think sometimes people don't realize that they're like, oh, I wish that I could do that or whatever. Anybody can, because it really is a skill. Now, some people, maybe because of the way they grew up or they more naturally go to that route, and yet everybody can develop that skill.
Yeah.
And it's such an important skill to have in every aspect of our world. So that's so daycare. So that was part of a big part from 19, I believe, to I think it was like 23. I would have to do the math on it.
Yeah.
And so 2005, my dad dies. 2006, I decided to get my real estate license. Hey, Bruno. Or was convinced to get my real estate license. And interesting enough, the way that came about is, like I said, my brother had been attempting to get me into real estate. He was doing really well in it. Mm-hmm. But I thought of him as, well, you're a salesperson, because his background was a horse trainer, but they swapped and sold horses. I mean, so he was very much in that.
Right. And if you know Chuck, like, the dude is a natural.
So, yeah.
I'd put him in any market and put him up against anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so so I didn't see myself that way. And so, he said, look, why don't you come work with me as, you can do admin. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I could do that. So I went ahead and I got my real estate license. I actually studied and did everything while I was in Texas. And then, the week I moved to Louisiana, I took the test. And I know, I passed one portion. I did pass the second one. I had to go back, and that was devastating because I'm a good test taker. I'm good at school. Well, those, and I had done it in like a 2-week window where I just so then
But the test is no indication. Some of the best, let me clarify. The test is no indication of how good or bad of a realtor you'll be.
That's right.
I have people who did one and done, which means they took it one time and passed and went and got their license, and they were the worst agents I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'll use Chris Rux as an example. I think that dude failed 8 or 9 times, but the dude sells 70 houses a year.
That's right.
Yeah, the test is no indication of your success rate as a realtor.
None.
Yeah. And
actually, it's funny enough, I remember when Chris was going through all that, somebody was like, I guess maybe worried about, and I said, no. I said, I'm not worried about him at all. I said, look, it's the grit that you need. And he kept going back. I was like, no. I said, I'm more concerned with this person over here that may have been one and done, but they may not have the grit. Mm-hmm. That demonstrated right there he had the grit. I was not concerned about him not doing well.
Yeah, I say it all the time. Real estate, you can be the best salesperson on the planet. You can be the best marketer on the planet. You can be the best communicator on the planet. But the startup in real estate, that 1 to 2 year ramp up period is hard. It's miserable. It's work. It's sacrifice. It is pain. This is a game of how many walls are you willing to knock down and continue to go until you just get that first taste of success. And then the ball starts to roll and it gets more fun.
That's right. That's right. And yet it's 100%. It's so, the wall's not there to keep you out sometimes. The wall's there to see how bad you want it.
Yeah.
And what you're willing to do to climb over or go around.
Yeah. I had an agent on the team recently that was considering giving up their license. Last year was their first full year. And they closed 1.8 million in volume, which I think, so that's actually average, right?
Yeah.
She, in her first year, she did what all the average realtors do. But it wasn't enough to pay her bills. Most people don't know, but most realtors are the working poor.
Yeah.
And, she was telling me at the end of the year, like, I'm not sure that I'm renewing. I'm not sure that I'm renewing. I was like, no, your breakthrough's coming. I promise it is, because you've been doing the activities. I don't know when, but I'll pay. I'll do whatever I got to do. Give me 6 more months of your life. You're going to see it turn around. In January, she closed $1.5 million in volume.
Yeah.
In January, she covered her entire year.
Yeah.
But if she would have given up.
That's right.
If she would have let those walls knock her down instead of knocking them down and persevering, she never would have had that. And now she's rocking 2 to 3 pending pretty much at all times right now.
Well, that's silly. We talked about this a lot. Like, a lot of times, like, you're going to have a breakdown before you have a breakthrough. Mm-hmm. You look at, it doesn't matter if you're running marathons, you're in real estate, in a relationship, you are going to have a breakdown before you have a breakthrough. So you want to actually celebrate that breakdown. And it doesn't feel like celebrating in the moment. You continue, you have a breakdown. You're like, I can't tell you when I first started selling real estate, how often I would call my brother and because knowing he's in real estate, crying, going, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to go get a real job. And he would say, just take a deep breath, go to the movies, go take a nap, go do something, and then come back at it. And I would. And it was like the next week, he's like, how are you doing? I'm like, I listed 5 houses. Right? I got 3 under contract. And so it's that. So understanding and celebrating that we do have a breakdown before we have a breakthrough.
Yeah. And that doesn't matter at which level of this game you're in. My expectations of how many houses I sell versus most people are very, very different. But I mean, I haven't seen less than double-digit pendings in 3 or 4 years. Like, I keep 10 to 20 plus pendings at a time. And in January, I had 3.
Yeah.
I think I'm at like 15 or 13 right now. But like, it was scary, right? But I can't give up.
That's right.
I've got to keep, like, it's a continual game of knocking down those walls and hitting your goals.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's continual, and it's, you're going to put systems in place to help it be more systematic. And yet it's it's a business. When you take your foot off foot off the pedal, your eye off the ball, you get, that roller coaster ride, right?
Real estate roller coaster.
And I think, real estate agents can understand this. I think any entrepreneur, business people,
sales, commission only, yeah.
Because this, it's and then the cool part too, it's knowing there's patterns, and getting to the point is, where can you recognize the patterns for you, patterns for the business, the sales cycle of the business, and understanding, because then, sometimes we have this false sense of what we should be receiving. And so if you're tracking your numbers, and because, business is the language of numbers, if you're tracking your numbers and you're aware of what, that becomes very eye-opening. And now you're judging yourself against a criteria that's real versus the way that you feel. So an example of that, let's say that you're a salesperson, and you're whether you're we call them telemarketers, inside sales, or just salespeople. And let's say that you are circle prospecting, and you have a list of people that you're calling, and you're like, nobody's actually picking up or answering. Well, what are you comparing that to? What we do know from, people doing the work is, about a 12% pickup rate is really good. So if you had, we're calling 1,000 people, help me out with the math here. I guess, let's say you're calling 100 people and 12 people pick up. That's a really good
normal day. Our ISAs, we asked them, in our call center, we asked them to make, 150, 250 calls a day. But what I'm really wanting to see is 20 conversations with new people every single day, plus follow-ups. And so, yeah, I mean, you're right on the money. What I noticed, especially when we're just doing our production contest, and I'm seeing the dials versus how many people are picking up and how many people are calling in our call center. I mean, I think Daniela, was like, I made 150 dials today, and I've only talked to 13 people, so I guess it looks like I'm making about 100 more before I can get off the phone. Yeah. And so, yeah, you're up there, yeah. Yeah,
and so now you can, instead of judging yourself and going, that many people aren't picking up. No, like, is that the norm, right? So, like, if that is, and I'm getting higher than that, I can actually celebrate it. So it's knowing your numbers and knowing your patterns, so that you're not judging yourself against something that's not real. I remember whenever I was training for some ultra marathons, and the summer happened, and in Louisiana, it's 100 plus degrees, the humidity's high, it is miserable being outside. Mm-hmm. And so I was running, and I'm getting slower, and I'm like was not happy.
Yeah.
And I remember calling my running coach, and I was like, "What? Like, what's happening?
Better, not worse."
Yeah. And because I was judging it against the wrong measure, and so the cool part, and this is one of the reasons why having that outside perspective is so huge, is she was actually able to look at that and go, "Wait a minute. So what's the temperature?" She plugged it into a formula. We looked at the formula. We looked at the temperature and the humidity and all this, and she said, "So." Based on where you've been running, you will run about 2 minutes slower right now. Mm-hmm. And so, like, if you were at a 10-minute mile, because we're talking over 15 miles, something like that, you're going to be at a 12. And she said, this is the cool part. If you keep doing it while it's hot, while it's the summer, when fall hits, you're going to get to 9.
Your time's going to get better.
Going to get better. So you have to know that so that you know when to push and when to understand that is. So in that moment, that 12, which was frustrating because I'm like, that's back when I was, brand new. That was actually still very good, very fast for where I was and the temperature and everything. And then you're still on the road to get better.
Right.
So you just got to know what you're comparing it to and not having it be some false, because what does that say? Feelings aren't real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where you'll feel like you're winning, but you're losing.
You can.
And there's a lot of times where you feel like you're losing and you're winning, and that's why it's so important for business owners to know their numbers. If you're running a business, if you own a business, if you're a salesperson, and you're not paying attention to your KPIs, your key pointing indicators, then you're missing out on a lot. Like, for instance, let's just talk about like marketing ad spends for a second. We spend X with Zillow, we spend X with homes.com, we spend X with realtor.com, we spend X on our own personal branding ads, and we spend X for our listings for both Google and social media spends plus retargeting. And I was running our numbers and I was like, well, hold up. Like, Zillow, I spend less with Zillow than I do on my own personal marketing stuff. So the first thing I did is I looked at my marketing and my targeting, and I was like, this is all the stuff that's been working for us for years. Something has changed. So we started to look at like, okay, we need to retarget, and we did. And I was like, well, Zillow's still outperforming us right now. Mm-hmm. Well, so I had to make a decision because I know what my KPIs are. And so what we did is we inversed the spends.
Yeah.
And at that time, we got more leads. Now we've noticed that things are shifting again.
That's right.
Homes.com is now an interrupter in that market. They're doing things differently. Our Google ads are performing their butts off right now. Mm-hmm. But if I didn't know my numbers as a business owner, I would be squandering the funds of our agents and our company.
100%. And this is the interesting thing. I think sometimes, because most of us entrepreneurs, we don't, some of us love numbers, and most of us don't.
I hate them, but they're necessary.
Yes. Well, and what we typically don't like about them is actually gathering them and putting them in the spreadsheet or whatever we love actually looking at them, interpreting. So a lot of times that's one of the things that if I'm working with an entrepreneur that doesn't do that, I'm like, look, who is our who? Whether it's somebody in the organization, whether we're going to go outside of the organization, but if we can get all those numbers put together, because that's not maybe the best use of your time as the entrepreneur, but when you can have those numbers, they tell a story, mm-hmm. and that story helps you be profitable. That story tells you where you need to keep pouring into and what you need to adjust, and just like what you demonstrated there. And so we have to know those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything in your life as an entrepreneur, it has a red number or a green number on top of it. And then that green number, I mean, would you spend $1 to make $1.01?
No. So that's
probably not.
Probably
right?
not.
So that green number is actually pretty irrelevant to you. But would I spend $1 to make $4?
Yeah.
Every day of the week. In fact, I will empty out my bank account if you will 4x my bank account in X amount of time, right?
Yeah.
And so you, as an entrepreneur, you have to, your systems have an ROI. Your employees have an ROI. Your contracted 1099 people, mm-hmm. they have an ROI. And if there's not a green number on their head, it's performance enhancement plan, it's pivot, or it's, unfortunately,
this doesn't work any longer.
Yeah,
this is it.
It doesn't work.
Absolutely. And so that's the piece of like, you've got to know your numbers. And again, I think sometimes we make it way too complicated. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you go, well, I don't have any of my numbers. Okay, well, let's start with these 3. Let's start with these 4, and then we'll build on it. It doesn't have to be all, sometimes we get into thinking of the all or nothing.
Yeah.
And no. It's let's work our way into that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm a big believer in simple. You have to keep it simple.
Yes.
And so if you have somebody, I'll work with clients that they like it in this spreadsheet. Somebody else likes it handwritten. Somebody else likes it. I'm like, doesn't matter how you're doing it as long as you can keep telling a story. So if you have somebody like yourself that likes to do it hands, that's great. Do it by the hand and then give that information to somebody that can put it in the sheet so that we can see progressively what that looks like, right?
I want the record to show that Alivia makes fun of all of my handwritten stuff. And you said keep it simple. There are so many team leaders where they're a little bit more analytical than I am. I'm a really high DI. For those of you who don't know, it just means I'm a high driver and I talk a lot. And not very detail-oriented unless I make myself be detail-oriented. But I will go talk to other mega agents, mega team leaders, and they will be measuring every single metric in their business. And they're like, Harrison, what do you measure? I was like, none of that. I need to keep it simple unless I can see that it massively affects the dollars of the company. Like for an agent, I care about your dials, but you can dial 500 people if you don't talk to anybody and don't make.
That's right. Well, yeah, absolutely. So you look at, and everybody's a little bit different. So it's the only reason, unless you're like in the telemarketing or inside sales, outside sales, I'm not that concerned about the dials either. Sometimes the dials will help because you'll know if I'm circle prospect or if I'm doing this, then my expectation is, and anything over that, that's good.
Right.
And then you have some people that it's the connections. So we're really more concerned about the connections. And you have some people that like to connect face to face. You have some people that like to connect on the phone. You have some people work within what works for you. And then how do I increase that? Mm-hmm. How do I make it scalable? Because it's one of those things where everybody's going to have a part of your job that you don't love. That's okay. And yet it has to also be to the point that if you are doing things that you hate, you're not going to do them very long. Mm-hmm. So you have to find how can you be successful with the thing that works for you. And sometimes what that means is, I'll use an example of, I've had clients that they a lot of times will talk about things like, well, that's low hanging fruit. And I'm like, hold on. But if you don't have the skill set for that, it's not low hanging fruit for you. You have to learn the skill set. Now, I do think that you're capable of learning the new skill set. And if it doesn't take away from what you're already doing, let's learn that skill set. So when we go back to measuring, you don't have to measure everything. You have to measure a few important things and lean into that.
Yeah, because I really do believe there's a few KPIs for every role for your 20%.
That's right.
I don't think there's 100.
No.
There's really not. And honestly, when you start giving people 100 different metrics, even 20 different metrics to grade their success upon, you're overloading them. If you gave me that, if me and you had a meeting and you're like, Harrison, here's the 20 things I want you to work on, I'm like, can we start with 3? In fact, me and you had a phone call the other day, right?
Yeah.
And we were on the phone for 20 minutes and we went over 3 or 4 different topics. And at the end of it, I was like, I just want to recap everything we talked about because you can't give me any more today. Yep. This is all I can handle on my plate today. I'm going to talk to this person. I'm going to have this conversation and I'm going to go do this thing. Was there anything else that I need to do inside of those things? And then we kept talking. I was like, I can't handle anymore. Yeah. If you give it to me, I'm going to forget or I don't care anymore.
Right. Well, 100%. And that's where sometimes it's such an important part when you're working with your coach or your business partner, anybody to say, hey, look, this is like a brainstorming session. We're going to talk about a lot of things. And yet at the end, let's talk about what is the 1 or 2 things that we're actually going to move forward on, because you will see that a lot of times because we want everything to happen today.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. And so there's a book called Finish that everybody should read. But part of what it talks about, like when you have a goal or you have something that you'd like to do, you're going to always want to do 2 things. Either double the amount of time that you think it's going to take you to do that thing, or divide in half the number of things that you're going to do that thing. Because then you'll have those wins and you'll actually get it done. If you say that, and you'll do it faster. But if you try to do all of these things at one time, 90% of the time, nothing important actually gets completed. So you have to 100% like, okay, hey, we're talking about all this stuff, but we're not looking at doing this stuff this week. What are the things that we're actually implementing and continuing to go back to those pieces? That's huge.
And one step further, document it. Write it down. There's days where I don't think I get anything done. And then I go back and I'll get on my whiteboard and I'll go, what did I do today? Because I need to account for my time because I feel like I wasted it. And I will start writing things. I'm like, okay, I did move the ball forward. But what I did is I moved the ball forward so thin on 5 different platforms. And that's the antithesis of what we actually teach, right?
That's right.
Go deep, get it done. And I've never read the book finished, but I have a feeling that I'm about to say the word that concludes it like finish.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, and whenever you look at, you mentioned, writing it down. So I love the line, you want to, just like, why do we budget? We want to tell our money where to go versus wonder where it went. Why do we put things in our calendar? It's because we want to tell our time where to go versus wonder where it went. So when you get off of an important phone call or something like that and you go, okay, these are the things that I'm going to do, make sure you have your calendar with you and you pull it out and you go, okay, when am I going to do it? Now, life happens. You make arrangements. But if it's not in your calendar, doesn't exist.
It exists.
So, where are you documenting that you're going to do this thing? Because so often what happens is we start working on the urgent, and the urgent is not always the important. Yeah. And then the more we work on the urgent, what happens is now we're just reactive to everything. That's where people experience burnout. That is where you're tired, you drop the ball, and you can only manage that for so long, and then business isn't fun. So yes, there are urgent things. The more you can focus on the not urgent and important things like learning and renewal, planning, the more time you can spend there, what happens is the urgent starts minimizing. So like 10% of urgent things come up, not 90% of your day is on urgent things.
Boom. Like I'm forced to do these things. I'm not doing these things on purpose.
That's right.
I actually wrote that in my notes today because I deep dived into discipline this morning. It came to mind, and it did. So you were the first coach to tell me like Harrison, you have to have a schedule. You have to have a schedule. You have to defend your schedule. You can't just make it. Now you have to defend it and live by it, and disappoint people with that sometimes. Like, hey, I need you to be here at 3. I have a 3. And I'm not moving it for anybody. I've already committed to my 3. And it's obviously the bold law. Like, if it's not on your schedule, it doesn't exist. And I used to ask you, if you're a new entrepreneur, if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, if you are a salesperson, I want you to listen right now. Alivia was trying to teach me the power of my schedule and why I needed it. And I looked at her and I said, that doesn't matter to me right now. I'm not busy enough for my schedule to matter. And you said something along the lines of, if you ever are going to be who you want to be, then your schedule will matter one day. And then I was sitting in the room with my admin at the time, and we were having major scheduling conflicts. And I was like, had I been doing this the whole time, we wouldn't be here having these problems. And we'd had balls dropped. We had fines we had to pay. We had refrigerators we had to buy for clients. Yeah. And it was all because we never learned to manage our time. And if you'll learn to manage it early in your career before you're busy, you'll never go into urgency. You'll always stay in purpose.
That's right. Well, and it's interesting. We do think of it as time management, and that's a part of it, but really it's self-management. And that's one of the things, and I will, you live and die by certain things. So when you look at creating your schedule, well, first off, I have to know what's important. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to reference what's my goals. What are the things that I want to accomplish? Okay, great. What are, now I'm going to go, okay, based on that, what needs to happen this month? Okay, based on that, what needs to happen this week? Okay, based on that, what do I need to do today? Yeah. Now, and then you're going to start with, I say family, but what I mean is, well, first off, start with yourself. What is your self-renewal? What is the time that you're taking for yourself? Then you're going to go into, okay, we talk about, your 20% and everything. So then you look at, okay, who are the people in my life that are my 20%? And that could be, your spouse, significant other, kids, what am I going to bring to them this week? Then you look at, okay, what are the things, what does the lead generation look like in my business? And every business is different for every entrepreneur, right? Sometimes it's social media, sometimes it's on the phone, sometimes it's both. But what is that? Maybe it's videos. What is that thing that's going to keep people coming back to my business? Then it's staying in touch with people, but you've got to let this live in your schedule. Now, the one thing that I do find is a lot of times, and I work with a lot of people that have, a lot of entrepreneurs that have, ADHD, diagnosed for ADHD. And one of the things is sometimes what happens is and I think this is, whether you have ADHD or not, sometimes we attempt to, let's say that Harrison says, hey, this is how I do it. And I look at it and I go, oh, that's awesome. So I'm going to do what Harrison does. And I attempted, and I keep just failing at it. And instead of going, wait a minute, he showed me a model. Let me see what that model works and what doesn't, and then either make my own or keep looking at other models. Because people have come before us. We don't have to completely recreate the wheel.
Yeah.
But sometimes what happened, and this is because our brain starts saying things like, well, if he does it that way and I don't, there must be something wrong with me. And I'm like, no, you look at the models and then you create what actually works for you. Because a lot of times, when I'll see people they'll do their schedule and I'll ask, like, is that a real schedule or is that like perfect? And they're like, it's like, no. Yeah. And I'm like,
there's got to be room for error in there.
There's room for error, room for the emergencies that do come up.
Happen, right?
And so, but getting away from that, like, oh, I'm wrong. And instead of doing everything like it's almost like a, scientific hypothesis.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to do it this way, and then I'm going to say what worked, what didn't, what did I learn? Okay, based on that, what am I going to now do? And there's, because where, for anybody that's read Brené Brown, they talk about the difference between shame and vulnerability, and then shame, and like there's a difference between like I am bad and I did something bad, or I am ineffective and I did something ineffective.
That's so true. God, that's so true. All right, so before we get there, I do want to break down that schedule thing, because I heard 4 key points, and I want to see if you agree with me on what I heard.
Yeah, you were smiling. I wasn't sure where you were.
So I was smiling because I did that this morning. Like, you're talking about that. Like, I told you that, like, discipline and consistency that's my key word right now, because I know that's what I'm lacking in my life. And I used to be really great at it. And now I have let, we're up to, 4 or 5 companies now. We're currently, working on a couple of new ventures, and I've let things get in the way of my schedule and my consistency and my disciplines. And so when you were just saying exactly what needed to happen, I was like, I literally did that this morning. Like, look, like,
yeah,
like that is like, so for number 1 is, what are your goals? Well, here's my health goals and my work goals. Cause those are the 2 biggest things for me right now. I've been on a weight loss journey and a mental health journey. Those are 2 things that I lost, and I've been slowly getting back.
Well, and I would even say it's not that you lost it. We have seasons in our life.
Yeah. Well, 300 pounds is not a season anyone should experience.
And this is the other cool part about, if we know our numbers.
But no one the number I was tracking.
That's right. Well, but that's what happens.
Yeah.
I'm very much like that. I showed you a picture earlier today, right? Like when we take our eye off of what's important to us, we're not tracking it. Guess what's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so number 1 is identify your goals and the portions of your life that you have goals in. Number 2, identify the habits. Number 3, implement those habits into a schedule. Number 4, leave room to be human.
Yes. Well, that's such a huge piece is when we start looking at building habits, because you mentioned discipline. Think about discipline. It is just a bridge. So the discipline bridge, right? So like, this is where I want to be. These are the, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. So I'm going to use discipline to inform those habits. The reason that we want to create it into habits is eventually we don't need the discipline anymore in that particular piece. We take something as simple as brushing our teeth. Well, when you think about, it's when you were little, you didn't have the discipline of brushing your teeth, right? Your parents would go brush your teeth. Did you brush your teeth? Go brush your teeth. Right? All of this. And eventually you did it enough so that it was a discipline to brush your teeth. Now, or it's a habit. Well, now we don't have to think about it. You wake up, you know, and it's actually the opposite now. If you go to like a dentist appointment or you're going to go get surgery and they're like, don't brush your teeth today or don't, you know, you will literally put the, you know, put the paste on your brush, lift it in your mouth and go, oh, I'm not supposed to. So that's where...
Because hopefully you're programmed to brush your teeth.
That's right. Well, and it's interesting. Let's say that you're not. So we'll talk about people that have like ADHD. The habits, it's different. It's a lot harder. But if you tie them, and this works really well with people with ADHD. And the interesting thing is, let's say that you don't have ADHD. You haven't been diagnosed. This is something that, while it works for everybody in different things. So let's say that you're somebody with ADHD and habits are really a challenge because your brain doesn't work that way at all. Tie it to something that you already do. So for instance, you wake up and a lot of people eat and then brush their teeth. That won't work for me. Somebody that has, like for myself with ADHD, because now I'm on the next thing and I would run. So it literally wake up, go to the restroom, brush my teeth. Like it has to be in that order or I would be that person that goes, oh, right?
Yeah.
So find the thing that there's a trigger for you. So that might be in that. And I know we're using like the teeth brushing as an example, but you know, what are you tying it to make it simple? All the way to if there's a new habit that you're looking to acquire, go to the gym, get healthy. Make it so simple that it's easier to do than not do. Mm-hmm. So I'll use the example of whenever I first started working out, I decided I wanted to be a runner. And I was 37-ish. And my whole life, I have wanted to be somebody that, like I was growing up, I was always physical, all the brothers. I always played sports. I was always good at it.
Yeah.
And then you grow up and they don't offer PE anymore. I wish that was like a requirement for the rest of our life, right? The PE class.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to get off pace and get busy and doing this and not worrying about that. And so I was like, okay, what is so easy that you don't have any excuse for? And it was for me, I started with 10 minutes a day. I had a 66-day challenge where I had to move at least 10 minutes a day. And what I discovered is sometimes it would be at like 11 o'clock at night. Oh, I haven't done it. Let me move for 10 minutes. And sometimes that was stepping side to side. Sometimes that was, and then what I discovered through that is by doing that 10 minutes or at least 10, more often than not, I was doing an hour. More often than not, I was right. Then I started running, and then all of these things came up. But it started with how to make it so simple. It's easier to do than not do, and everything starts that way. If you're creating that discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
All right. So we have to go back to your story now.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
The moderator after 30 minutes. All right. So you got your license. You were an admin for Chuck.
Yep.
We got to get into production.
Yes. So that was so funny. So I was very lucky because when I got into the business, I had support, somebody that was doing well, that believed in me. And I was involved in a lot of his coaching calls. And so it wasn't very long that I was like, I don't want to be the admin. I want to do sales.
Well, I want to make more money than you.
Make more money.
Yeah.
And so now I do think having that admin background helped because I understood like a lot of the back end stuff. And yet it wasn't probably 2 or 3 months and I was actively selling. And it was so, and my favorite story about selling is I cut my teeth on like web leads and converting web leads. And so it was just a great jumping off point. And then I was like, well, I want to get really consistent, and we needed somebody that was really being consistent with taking listings. I had moved back here. I graduated high school here, but I went to 3 different high schools, and So I didn't have a sphere. And at that, I was 23 or 24. So people that I did know weren't buying houses. Everybody in my family was pretty much in real estate. So I wasn't selling my family houses. And so I started there was this, so then you go, okay, people have gone before you. What do people do? So I started researching everything, and I came across a website. There's no longer this website, but it was so awesome. It's called I Succeed or I Success or something. And they were talking about calling expireds and for sub owners. Anyway, there was a plan. And I was like, oh, I can follow a plan.
Yeah.
So, and at first, because there was some fear here, right? What's fear? False evidence appearing real. Forget everything and run. And so I was like, well, I'll just, I'm going to do this plan. I'm just going to send mailers. And I'm sending mailers. And I had a breakdown. Called Chuck.
Because there is no substitute for calling.
That is right. And I remember, like, I don't have no money.
And I suck. Like, no, you're just not doing the right activity.
That's right. And it was, eventually would I have landed something? Sure. It goes back to, was it the fastest or most effective way? And so, when you paint yourself into a corner, that can sometimes be a good thing because, right, like, we would like to think that we move toward pleasure, but really what it is humans, we move away from pain. Mm-hmm. So the pain of being broke was way more, painful than picking up a phone. Mm-hmm. So I started dialing. I started calling these people, and they met with me, and I listed like 5 houses in 1 week, and I went, what? Now, keep in mind that sounds great, but I didn't know what I was doing. So, they didn't sell. But then I went, so I have another problem. How do I get them to list with me at a price that will cause them to sell? What do I need to do marketing wise so that it will cause that to sell? And so I got really good at having conversations with people, discovering what it is that you actually want based on this market. What would we need to do? That way we knew if it was, as much as I'd like to sell your house, what you need and what you want, it's not going to happen. So I'd rather turn you down now than let you down later.
Yeah.
And then with others, it was, and nobody's ever told me that. And I'm like, well, this is what it's going to take. Well, let's do it. Mm-hmm. Now we're on the same page. We've set expectations and I can sell it. Everybody's happy. And it becomes that win-win. And so then we're selling. At that point, we were with a local company. Well, it was a franchise. And Chuck was approached by the regional director, Deb Murray, for Keller Williams, and said, hey, would you be interested in starting or talking about a Keller Williams franchise in our area? And at the time, this was right after like Katrina. Mm-hmm. So he and Avery, who at this point, they're both licensed, but I'm kind of running the local sales, and they were going down south and buying and flipping houses through Katrina, because you had some people that they literally, like, their house had flooded. Mm-hmm. And they were like, look, I don't ever want to come back to New Orleans, mm-hmm. but I have this house note. I can't do anything with it. You can have my house. Please don't make me ever come back. Mm-hmm. And then you had other people that, like they wanted to fix it back up and move back and that type of thing. So they were doing a lot of those types of houses down there. Yeah. So
Chuck told me about that year. He said it was the best year financially he's ever had. And I was like, I don't know if that's still true today, but yeah, it was like 6 years ago. That's when Chuck told me that. So I think we did that year, all in all, between those houses and those, I think we sold like 140 units. Mm-hmm. And this would have been, what year was Katrina? 2006.
That sounds right.
2005 or 2006.
Had to be 6 because I had my license. I got licensed in 2006.
I just marked that with pain because when Katrina happened, all the high schools down there, they dispersed to up here. And so some of their really good players came up here, and we lost to Bastrop High School in the semifinals by 3 points. And they got 2 5-star recruits out of down south. And they were like ridiculous. They had a 5-star quarterback and a 5-star wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like, cool. Randall Mackey, you're dead to me. You don't know who I am, but I know who you are.
Well, and that's the funny thing too. Like, you're in the South, we market, high school football.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're doing that. So he was not sure if he was even interested. And Avery said, well, look, let's talk to her. We'll find out.
Yeah.
So that's how we got involved at the point in Keller Williams. And they did created a group, and we did start at Keller Williams here locally. And then so I was with them for years, and amazing company, learned tons of stuff. And yet, but that was kind of I would say like, I will always be grateful for my time there, because it's funny how an environment matters. And that was our first exposure to an environment that said, you're okay. And let's figure out if you're not. Like, what can we do? So like, that was the first time, even in my family, we started having real conversations. Because again, I'm one of 7, so we have all these boys in our family. So it was, if you were hurt, it was dust it off.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah.
And so we started actually having real conversations. And
I think that the DNA behind Keller Williams, like Gary Keller's heart in creating Keller Williams, I'm going to say that doesn't travel franchise to franchise. That changes with local leadership and things like that. But it is my opinion that the heart of Keller Williams and the heart of Gary Keller was not just a high production company, but a personal growth company.
Yes.
And that was probably my biggest takeaway from there, is that it started my personal growth journey.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say 100%. And
I feel like he would really appreciate that.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's true. And he still considers himself, he's considered himself a teacher. And I would say 100%. Like, he's a real, but he's a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learned so much.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so so then I'm selling, and then I've done a lot of different things in sales, from selling houses to growing a team. And that's very interesting. So it's a whole different skill set if you're hiring people. So a lot of times, and that's where you see businesses will have challenges, because let's say that you have somebody that you're really good at, so say sales. Mm-hmm. Your business has grown where for you to do more business and have a quality of life, or even the same amount of business and have a quality of life, you've got to leverage it out. Mm-hmm. And so often people think, well, I'm a great salesperson, I'm going to be great at hiring. It's a different skill set. And so, that was a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
And so getting that skill set of hiring correctly, training correctly,
retaining, after that.
And so that's a whole different skill set. So that's kind of the direction that I went. And then so in 2000 and then at one point because I do love to teach, I was like, I'm going to be at Keller Williams, we called them team leaders. Mm-hmm. And so I actually moved to Alexandria to be their team leader.
I didn't know that.
I was.
What year was that?
That was before you came to KW. So I would have been 2012. I came back to like 2010, 2011, something like that.
Okay. So I was at ULM doing dumb stuff. Got
baby.
Yeah.
So what's funny though is I was probably like many entrepreneurs. So you have, entrepreneur. What happens with entrepreneurs. We have to discover like going from E to P. So entrepreneurial to purposeful. Mm-hmm. Well, what happens is we're really good naturally at this, whatever this is. And that's different for everybody. But at some point you're going to hit a ceiling. So at times you'll see with entrepreneurs, they'll hit that ceiling. And instead of breaking through, because that's going to take systems and accountability and new skills, coaching, education. Absolutely. Yeah. So what happens is we hit our head against that wall, and instead of breaking through, we go, oh, I'm going to start a new business. Oh, I'm going to, you'll see, a realtor. Oh, I'm going to be a lender. Oh, then they hit the new ceiling. Oh, I'm going to open up a clothing store. Oh, and they never quite break that.
Side business. I'm going to chase the next shiny rainbow colored butterfly.
Yes. Because in the moment, it feels easier than breaking through that ceiling. And sometimes people don't realize that that's all it is. It's just breaking through that ceiling. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and I was like, I'm going to be a team leader. Well, and I actually did enjoy that in a lot of ways, and I learned a lot from it. And I remember calling Chuck, and it's such an important piece to have that mentor, that coach in your world. Mm-hmm. Because I called him and I said, okay, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna sell and I'm gonna grow. Like, I'm gonna do this. And he said, the best question Like, because so often people will tell you what you want to hear and not what you need to hear. And his question was, what's going to be different? What's different about now?
Yeah.
And I got pissed.
Yeah.
I told you I was going to do it. And he was right, though.
That's a great question.
It's a great question. And it made me pause and go, like, what is going to be different? And for me, what was really going to be different was I was going to continue to learning. I was going to continue coaching. And I was also going to focus on, like, that's a model. This is a model. What model works for me? What is it that I'm looking to build? And so that's a big difference. So I came back in, 2012, and these numbers, I'll have to go back and get the exact numbers here, but like, so 2012, I came back and I think I did like, 2012, 13, 14, like, I don't know, maybe 60 something transactions. And one of the things though, that I was doing is I discovered that for me, I was great at converting people that are interested in real estate into the office, doing a consultation, really understanding what it is that they were looking for and helping them find that. What was an energy drainer, energy suck for me was showing them the actual houses. So I utilized a showing partner, showing concierge in this area before anybody had really even heard of it, because what I was discovering is if I showed houses all weekend, I couldn't get out of bed on Monday. Well, in the past, I made that mean I'm whatever. And really, it just meant that wasn't conducive to my energy level. So instead of trying to make myself bad or wrong, I said, how do I make this a win for everybody? And so I focused on listings and converting people to the office, and then letting somebody else show them, and then coming back to me to do the things that I'm really good at, and that I enjoyed. And so, and then it was funny. So my oldest brother and I, through this process, we ended up becoming partners, and some things worked really well, some things didn't. And so we had an expectations conversation of this, this doesn't work. And mainly he was, when you partner with somebody, you want to make sure, like, who's bringing what to the table, because if you're bringing the same thing, well, then that doesn't, you've got to, so I'm bringing this, you're bringing that. And also you want to make sure that it's I don't know if it's level, but like he wasn't yet, because he had just really started selling. He wasn't at the level that he needed to be for us to be partners. And so we had the conversation, and this is the interesting thing is, so I brought it to him. We had the conversation. This isn't working. Let's split. And I remember his son was teasing me, and he was probably, I don't know, maybe younger than this, but 13, 14, something like that. And TJ said, "You fired my daddy." And I'm like, "No, I didn't.
I fired my brother."
Yeah. And really, it wasn't even firing. It was a mutual conversation about what works, what doesn't.
Yeah. I would like to point out that it's okay to part ways in a healthy manner. Every time people part ways, they want to create some drama or something that's not there. Like just recently, there's a member of the team that went to go start their own brokerage. And you were on the Zoom call, like they cried, I cried, like, but there's no love lost in that room because we parted ways with love and with class. And if you can do that, there's no reason to hate someone as you part ways. There is such a thing as parting ways in a healthy manner.
Well, so like this, and to this day, like this is one of my, like he and I have like the best relationship. Like even after that, we would still hang out at each other's, or I would hang out at his house because he cooks better. So I would go to his house and cook for me. But we, and the cool part is we would still bounce ideas. We were just in different places.
Yeah.
And funny enough, because we did that the right way, I want to say it was maybe 2 years later where we were both where we needed to be, and we're still talking, and we realized, like, wait a minute, you're doing that, I'm doing this. What if we did it together? So guess what? We came back into a partnership. Because
you left in a healthy manner. Like there wasn't drama, and you kept being in creation in a relationship.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that was like the highest production that I had done, that he had done, because it was a really we were on the same page, we were at the same level, like all of these pieces. And so, you know, I do think there's times to be on your own. There's times to be partnerships. You just got to make sure you're partnering with the right person and the way that you're setting it up. So we went through a coach, and we had all of those, you know, who's going to do what and what's this look like, and we had those conversations so that we had the proper expectations. And but yeah, so that's kind of, and then from there, so this would have been like 2015. Okay, so 2015, KW had asked me, so under Keller Williams, there's under the umbrella of Keller Williams, they have a coaching company, which is called MAPS. And under MAPS, they have a coaching company called Bold Coaches. And these people actually travel around and teach other agents mindset, skill set, things to that effect. And so they approached me. I went in. You have to audition. Oh my gosh, that was nerve wracking, because I had decided my very first Bold, John Prescott, he taught that class, and I looked at him and I said, I want to be able to do what he does. And it was the teaching, but the communication I was like, I want to be able to do that. And so, when I set my sights on becoming a Bold coach, and that was when I came home, when Chuck really said, what's different? I said, I want to do that. In order to do that, I've got to get the production. I've got to get the communication. I've got to become, because a lot of times, you know, we set goals. If we set a goal and we can see how to get there, it's probably not big enough. Now, sometimes people go, if they don't hit a goal, they feel defeated. But it's not about the goal itself. It's who am I becoming?
Ooh, are we about to hear some be-do having?
Yes.
Let's go. Preach.
So it was very much like, so who am I becoming? And for me to become a Bold coach, I had to think like a Bold coach, then I had to do, and then I got to have. And so I went and I auditioned. And so this is by the end of 2015. I'm now traveling, and
well, hold up. So you have left out a whole part of this story.
Oh, yeah.
How did you become a Bold coach?
Oh, okay. So
you can't leave that out.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been waiting for an hour and 24 minutes to get here.
So again, I had this goal of becoming a Bold coach, and I went to, and so I'm growing the business, I'm growing the team, and we did, was it to 2015, 2014, 2013, I think, we were at around, we closed that year at 133 transactions, which was huge back then. Like
that was unheard of. Like, teams were new to the market. People hadn't seen these mega teams yet. So she really was at the forefront of what's going on today.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
And when the interesting thing was, part of that was, I want to be able to do this big thing and do it through leverage. So how do I make sure that I'm only, so my first goal was the year prior was not to work weekends. And then that year it was only to work 4 days a week. And part of that is because I was going to tons of trainings and learning how to leverage and learning the skills of how to coach and teach and things to that effect. And so, and all that was on my own dime, right? Like, I just knew, like, to become better, you have to learn and put these things into practice.
I think people need to hear how much, when you were really, before you were a coach, because after you become a coach, there's organizational things that you get to go to that don't cost as much money. When you were not a coach and you were purchasing your own personal growth, audiobooks, conferences, coachings, all that stuff, what were you spending per year on that? So, and not only that, but time. So I'd go somewhere, I'd learn something, and then I would come back and I would teach, because you have to implement, right? Otherwise it's just education or entertainment. So anywhere from 30, 60 grand, 90 grand, like for the team, like it was, we were, and the interesting thing, it was just funny how many people made fun of me at the time for how much money that I spent in coaching. Well, you're spending more than most of them are making.
And what I knew was, you keep thinking that I will outperform you. Yeah. You know, and it may not be this year, but end of the day, I'm gonna, so it was part of, like, I looked at it as, that's that was the cost of me being better.
Yeah. My favorite quote about coaching, this is my personal quote, and it's kind of offensive. It's very aggressive, but that's who I am as a human. And it is, when people ask me why I spend so much money on coaching and education and personal growth and why I will travel all over the country, I'm leaving in 4 days to go listen to a multimillionaire CEO talk to me about biblical principles on growing businesses, right? Why would I spend that much money? Well, because is it worth it? So the question they asked me, is it worth it, the amount of money I'm spending? And I go, I don't know, my competitors don't have coaches, and I don't locally, I don't really have competitors anymore because I never quit. They quit growing, they quit learning, they quit coaching because they hit the ceiling that they desired to hit.
That's right.
And I never quit. And so 100% coaching works, and I can prove it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that was, so it was where did I want to end up? Here I am. Well, there's that gap. How do I get there? Well, other people have gone before me. Let's find out. Let's figure it out. Let's go through. And so that was, where was that? So we were...
So what was the goal that you said you wanted to hit that year?
Oh, yeah. So then, so I'm actually in a bold classroom. At this point, I was still, this was a 10 times bold. I think it was the 10th time I had taken bold. And I had a coach. And so this would have been 2014. And this was like June or something. And we were still on pace to do the same number of units that we had done the previous year, even though we had better people, better systems. And I, and again, I sometimes I can, when things hit me and I say them and then I do them. And I said, so I stood up, I'm pretty sure I interrupted class. And I think Hank Aving was I believe he may have been, I believe he was the coach at the time. And I stood up and I said, we're going to hit 200 units or I'm going to shave my head. And I was looking for a different result, right? And something scary, because at the time, that was the first time in my life I'd ever grown my hair out. So, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And, but, you got to get to different. To get to better, you got to get through different. And so, now, what I learned now is I would have said the whole team, right? But the cool part is, so we heavy full court press. How do we do things different? How do we, who do I need to become in order to make this happen? And so, by the end of the year, we had a 25% increase. It was awesome. And I didn't hit my goal.
So what did you do?
So, we, shaved the head, and now we've shaved it was this short.
No, I've seen it. Yeah.
But we went and so what I ended up doing is we did a fundraiser for St. Baldrick's, and they raised money for cancer research.
So if you're going to go down, you might as well go down for a good cause.
That's right. Yeah. And I convinced I don't know, there was 3 or 4 other women that shaved their head and raised money with me, and then there was some gentlemen that shaved their head.
A whole movement.
Yeah. And but it was freeing, right? But it was I remember during that time, I had several people say to me hey, you set this big goal, you made amazing strides, and you don't have to shave your head. And this is where the people around you matter. And I said, I appreciate it, because they were coming from a place of, they loved me, and they could not imagine, you're winning and you're going to, but to me, if you say you're going to do it, I'm very particular about what I say I'm going to do, because you got to follow, you got to eat it, you got to do it. And I said, no, it's because it's about the integrity of myself. If I don't do this, then guess what? I've proven that there's lack of integrity to myself. And so I said, no, it's happening. And the cool part is that there were also people around me that they absolutely, held me to that. They didn't even, and it wasn't, when I say held me to it, it wasn't they were you better. It was, they never had any doubt that if I didn't hit it, I was going to do what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
And so even when people love you, don't let them give you the permission to play at a lower level than what you can play.
Yeah. So let's talk about, the word that sums all that up is accountability. Ultimate accountability, right? She said she was going to do something. She didn't hit her goal. And she said if she didn't hit her goal, there was a consequence for that. You didn't hit your goal, you paid the price.
Yeah.
Right? That is accountability at its finest.
Yeah. And the cool part is accountability doesn't, I think sometimes we look at accountability and something like that, and it's like this punishment. No, by setting that, I grew more. I figured out stuff. I learned stuff. Right? It wasn't a big negative. It was
right. But like, that also, that accountability, that massive accountability paved the way for.
Yes. So that was the interesting thing is that became like a big, there were people I didn't even know at international and stuff that knew or had heard about this. And then of course I go to a convention and I got these little bitty hairs and I think it was Diana Kokoska. She had heard about it, and Diana is one of my all time. She's phenomenal.
Champion of all realtors.
Yeah. And so she had heard the story, and then I think it was Beth Torrance. She was a bowl coach at the time. They videoed me sharing about this, and anyway, so yeah, that was kind of the process of. And we had a lot of bold coaches in my corner because I'd taken it so many times that I remember even Rich Carpenteri. He taught bold in our area, and he knew that was my path. And he said, have you signed up to, or are you auditioning? And I was like, I know I want to. And I could have auditioned, you had to do at least 75 units to be able to audition. Well, at this point, we're well beyond that.
Right.
And yet I had am I ready? Right. Yeah. And you also need people to go, yeah, you are, go do it. Yeah. And that's what he helped me do. He said, nah, I told John, you're going to do it. So go do it. And I was like, guess I'm doing it. And so that was that journey.
Yeah. But they saw how committed you were.
Yeah.
And do you believe that had a lot to do with why you got to go down that path where others don't get to?
I believe so. And it was, and it just shows up in so many ways when you're committed to, because and it's funny, when you're committed to do things. So when you're going through that process, I had to travel, again, on your own dime. You travel to different locations and you present a piece of the class. And I had some places that they were like, oh, you're awesome. And they, it's a red light or green light. And I went through one and I got a red light. Which I discovered later, he gives everybody a red light.
And so he's protecting the brotherhood.
Yeah. And yet, really though, after later, I was like, I would have given me a red light too. So there are times, again, I think people, if you're not careful, you go, well, they're trying real hard, so we're going to let them, but you got to protect certain things. And so, so then I went and, I did with John, and he was like, oh my gosh, the best, he's like, I haven't seen anybody at this stage that already can command the room and you got people involved. Well, what's interesting is by getting that red light, it made me step up my game. So I had, again, other people have gone before you. And before this, I had, pride was a little bit intact. And so I wasn't reaching out to bold coaches and saying hey, this is the part that I'm going to share. Help me internalize it. What do I need to do to take it off the paper and really make it come alive? Yeah. Well, so I had done that. I'd reached out to Beth Torrance and I'd said, Beth, and so she helped me. And so when I walked into John's room, it looked like I had been doing it for years. Mm-hmm. And so John's super impressed. And then I go to another room, and this was Shannon, and she's another phenomenal lady, tough cookie, high expectations, and I didn't communicate well. So I didn't. So what John had told me I was going to teach on, I was ready, but I had not communicated with her to see if there was anything different. So she gave me a piece that I wasn't expecting, and I fumbled. And thankfully, and this is the other cool part, the way you show up matters. So when she gave me that red light, and typically you can get one and you're out. And she gave me that red light, and I'm devastated. Yeah. And John calls me and he said, what happened? He said, you went from to, and and had a hard conversation with me. And I was like, what do I say, I'll do whatever you need me to do. Like, let me make it right. Mm-hmm. And so I flew back out to her the next week. Mm-hmm. And this time I did the things that high accountability level. I called, I talked with her. I was prepared.
Yeah.
Go in, blow it out of the water. And she even asked the class, she was like, is this a different person that showed up last time? They're like, yeah. And so I think sometimes in our love for people, we don't hold them to a high enough level. And so we actually can minimize their growth. Mm-hmm. And both of those coaches, as much as like, that red was like an F, Yeah. Like, all right, I don't get Fs. But they actually helped me step up to a whole nother level that I'd ever done because of their expectations, right? And so that's such a huge piece. And then what John did was he had enough belief in me because of how I had shown up. Mm-hmm. He held me to that. He gave me an opportunity. Then you have to rise to that opportunity. But that was probably one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Was making it through that process.
And for anybody who has not been to a bold, it's a lot of content. And I have had great bold experiences and mediocre or less bold experiences. It really depends on if you connect with a coach or that coach may have not shown up that day, right? But I can say this, so that I have two very memorable bold experiences. One was I actually went down south to go attend her class. And it was phenomenal. And she wanted a friend to be like, hey, do I suck? Like,
I need to know.
Yeah. She wanted me to come just so I would tell her the truth.
Yeah.
And then Amber Rutherford from Tampa.
Yeah.
Look, that woman is amazing. I have a lot of respect for her.
Yes.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. So we've made it from daycares to massive production to massive accountability to achieving the goal of becoming a bold coach and a MAPS coach. I want to point out one thing real quick because I didn't know this. This is probably the most in-depth we've ever gotten with your story.
My story.
Is that we both started out on web leads. Mm-hmm. We both cold called FSBOs, expired withdrawals. We both hired coaches and had mentors throughout early in our career and throughout the majority of our careers. And not to brag on either one of us, but both of us are top 1%ers, if not much higher. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how success leaves clues, and you see two different people, two different generations of people.
Generations. I'm 10 years older than you.
That's a whole generation.
We're going to have to Google that.
But different spheres, different, technology is different.
Yeah.
My business is so much different than your, mostly different. But our technology and the things we use today are very different, right? And yet, the core principles remain the same.
That's right.
Cold calling, web leads, coaching, mentorship, hard work, sacrifice, and when everything starts to grow, leverage.
Yes.
And our paths are so aligned there. And so I just wanted to point that out for anybody who's wondering, like, well, hey, can I be successful in this business? Well, you're 2 for 2 in the room on almost the exact same game plan.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I do believe, like, I'm with you. It's the coaching, figuring out the things that work for you. And part of that, when I say figuring out things that work for you, I also want to make sure that people hear what I mean by that. Sometimes people won't attempt new things because they're like, well, that's not me. Well, that's a very dangerous place to be because that's not a growth mindset. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, hold on. I need you to say that again. Hold up. Okay. People need to hear this because you and I both coach and mentor people. I would say I'm more trained and you more coach. But when I talk to someone, they're like, hey, what do I need to do to be successful? I'm like, well, these are the key pieces. These are the skills that you need to work on. And they go, well, that's not me. And I'm going, well, this may not be for you. Yes. This whole thing may not be for you. If you're not willing to get out of your comfort zone to go achieve big things, I can almost promise you that you're going to fail.
Well, and then this is the interesting thing when we look at that's not me. How do you know if you have never done it? So I actually, I'll have people that I'll say, look, let's train for it. Let's do it. Let's get good at it. And then you can decide to never do it again. Mm-hmm. So I look at, we take, for those of you in the real estate industry, expireds. I am badass at expireds.
Same, love it.
For sub owners, I can do it. Do I enjoy it as much?
It hurts a little bit more.
Yeah. For me, it's for sub owners, you have to create a relationship. This is probably why I'm almost.
It takes multiple calls.
Yeah. Well, and I always the joke is like, look, I'm almost 42 and I've not been married. I don't like to date. And for sub owners, it kind of felt that way with me. Where with expireds, it was like, hey, you want this? I can help deliver this. Let's go work together.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. You want to sell your house. You're willing to pay an agent, and you obviously wanted to work with an agent. You just possibly picked the wrong person.
Wasn't the right one.
Yeah.
And so, hey, Bruno. So that was and yet before you focus on like, oh, well, I'm not good at that. How do you know yet? The first time I ever decided to expire, I wasn't good at it. I didn't know what to do. You just started. And then, so it's the same thing. I think we were talking about running and you're like, my whole life, I wanted to be a runner. And what I'd always attempted to do 5Ks. And what I discovered is, I would train, I would barely make it through a 5K. And then, 5 years later, I'd start running again. Well, whenever I decided, if I want to be a runner, what do runners do? Runners run. So I just started running everywhere. I'd run to go on errands. I would just run everywhere. And what I discovered was, for me, running wasn't first mile sucked. Running actually didn't start being enjoyable to somewhere between miles 3 and 5, which means at a 5K, that's like 3 point something miles. So I never actually.
Well, you were just starting to have fun. You're like, oh yeah, I kind of want to keep going.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. And then then it was somewhere around mile 12 and then 16 that you really. So it was funny. So you think about, I wonder how many people don't actually get where they want to go because they stop before they discover, oh, this is really the thing for me.
Yeah.
You got to break through. Now, again, with that said, I've had people, and not everybody's a runner. I'm not saying that, but whatever you're doing, do it long enough that you can say, you know what, I'm good at it. And I'm choosing not to do it again. And I think that because I'm
good with that.
Yeah, because everything's not, it's not the same for everybody. Some people love to door knock. I have. Yeah. But it's not for me. And
I'm more effective on the phone.
I
can make 10 times more dials and talk to 10 times more people than going to door knock and be sweaty at people's front door.
And yet I know that, there are certain agents that
they make a living off of door knocking.
And love it, and it works for them. And so that's where, but don't turn something down on the face because it's not you. Learn about it, do it, and then decide if it's not you or not. Because so often we don't really know what's us until we've actually done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely agree. All right. So we've made it through your past. We made it through coaching. And now I think that you've got some new things going on in your world.
Well, we do. And so before we go there, we went to Become a Bold Coach 2015. By the end of that year, I was also doing individual coaching.
Okay.
And
it's MAPS Mastery coaching, right?
Mastery. And so as you're, whenever in Bold, you travel a lot. Like you might be in 2-3 different cities in 1 week. And I loved being in the material. That was amazing. And I met some amazing people, and I loved teaching and training in that venue. And yet by the 2019, I was kind of done by the end of 2019. So 2020, right before the pandemic, I had stepped out of MAPS, and I stepped out of Bold. So I was still doing one-on-one coaching.
Thankful for that. Because I have a feeling Bold was kind of
it got a little bit wonky for a minute. Yeah. And actually the coach that I was working with at the time, he said, I think it was after the pandemic, maybe midway through the year or something. He was like, did you know the pandemic was coming? And I was like, no. I said, but it's funny is I've got a mom that prays. So sometimes I'll land into places that were really good. And I believe that was her and God. Cause I'm like, I have no idea how that happened.
Yeah.
So we did, I was doing one-on-one. And so from 2020, to the beginning of this year, so I tend to have a pattern, end of the year, beginning of the year. I was doing one-on-one coaching clients, and it's been amazing. Like there's coaching clients that I started working with when they were doing 75 transactions with an admin to, coach them all the way to they're doing 300 transactions. Investment property.
Top few agents in their state.
Yeah. And then others that, they were doing well in real estate. We were teaching them how to grow a business. And then we had others that it was funny, like they were, coaching. I'm thinking of this one lady that, we started coaching with her, and it wasn't, she did want to do more business, and we were doing more business. But what was really cool, she said, this is the first time in my life that like I can go to bed without a knot in my stomach because I have a path, I have a plan. I'm not having nightmares. And I thought, oh, that's a game changer. That was really cool.
Yeah. Even if you're not doing more production because of coaching, but your business is more in line and you're giving people better service and you get more time back because there is a system and a schedule and things there, that is a game changer. I know. So I had...
Because it's like what is important to that person we want to Yeah,
my best year in the team was 552 units. And I wanted to quit real estate at 380 units the year before. I wanted to quit, but we made some changes. I made a change that all of my coaches told me to make for years, and I never would do it. And then I realized, like, my life is getting worse, not better. I had to go part ways with somebody. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And because I loved that person. And then we hired someone else in that role that was fit for that role. And all of a sudden, my life got so much better. I had time. Things were being done on the back end. I didn't have to wake up at 1 o'clock and go get on my computer and be like, none of the documents got done. Like I'm working it as the owner of the company, the guy who's selling over 100 houses a year himself. Like I am waking up at 1 o'clock and worried about somebody else's job.
Yeah. And
by listening to my mentors and my coaches, my life instantly got better.
Yeah. That's what the interesting thing about coaching is sometimes, depending on what you're building, there are times where it's like it's slow and then boom. And then other times it is just a conversation, one conversation, and it changes your world.
Yes.
And so that's a really interesting piece. But yeah, so now the funny thing is, so you and I started talking. When are
you talking about talking about what?
Well,
I'm talking about a lot.
Well, no, was a few months ago, you and I had, we were talking because I was in the place of, I love what I do. I'm ready to do something, a little different. And, I really, I was missing a local community and things to that effect. And,
well, you came and spent some time with the team. Yeah. And you sent me a message and you're like, hey, I missed that.
Yeah.
And then it made me remember when you were team lead at KW and, you were coaching, you were personally, and that was part of the perks of this. We were like, you want to be on the other side? No. What if I personally coach you? And like, okay. You talked me into it. And that was one of the perks was we got to get coached by you. And there was a sense of camaraderie. I mean, your brother invested tons of hours in me. Christy, I mean, they took financial risks on me. And I missed that. And then I'd when you came and hung out with us for a few days and you were like, hey, that was pretty cool. And I was like, it actually felt really good. Yeah. Like maybe we should do it again sometime.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And we started talking and we're playing around with ideas and, so it was, so I think that leads to this next, which, anybody that follows me, I posted, I've stepped out of Maps. It is an amazing and wonderful opportunity there. And, now it's time to start my own. And so I've, started a coaching company. We're getting things together and, I'm actually, working with, not just your real estate business, but I'm actually, we've started already with some of the other businesses and we're going to continue with some of the other businesses. I'd love to hear from your perspective because technically I think it was February 1st, right? But that I started with coaching you this way, but we've been in talks for a couple of months now. What has your experience been because with my coaching, the way that we've been experiencing, it's kind of like, okay, here, let me come see what you guys are doing. I'm consulting, and then coaching, and then where does the training pieces need to fill out? What is what's that experience been like for you?
Yeah. So the easiest way to put it is just through an example. When you first came and we were talking, and obviously we've had some transitions on the team. 2 of our mega agents just both went and got their broker's license and said, hey, we're going to start our own companies, which again, not mad at them, like applaud them, love them. I coach people to grow and to go and to be entrepreneurial. So shame on me if I'm upset about it. So I want to clarify, I'm not mad about that. Yeah. But I was going over those transitions with you, like, hey, our P&L is affected. Our staffing is now affected. There's some things that are affected here. And so we started, one of our director, Amy, who needs more time on her plate to go do the things that we need her to do for the company to grow and to thrive. Like, we have to find time. But with the P&L change, you can't just go hire people if there's not money coming in, right? And so me and you sat down, and I think it was probably somewhere around 10 total hours of consulting, and you went, Harrison, you're missing this person. You're missing this role that was going to give back her 3/4 of her time, which is going to allow her to go do her job. And I was like, how did I not see that? How did I not see that? And you simply said to me, Harrison, it's because I'm not in the business. I'm looking at the business. I'm taking what you tell me. We're writing it down. We're creating charts. We're looking at numbers. And I am able, from a consultant standpoint, to go, hey, you just have like one missing little cog in the whole wheel. And that's going to make everything turn better. Yeah. And it's that 10,000 foot view where you can see the overview of something, but I'm stuck in the mud. Yeah. Like, I'm selling, I'm running companies, I wear multiple hats. And that one change, I believe, because we're currently in the middle of that transition and training, but I would say in the next 6 weeks, now one of the most important pieces to the next step of where I want to be is that person is now going to get their time back, and we're going to be able to grow.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and because you have this phenomenal Amy, and I want to do an interview with her because Amy, phenomenal hire. Yeah. Phenomenal person, and she is like, I think, just you did a really good thing with bringing her in, and so. And yet, how do we make sure that, she's the best? She gets to be her best self within that organization. And a lot of times, right, like we get here, now we make this adjustment, and now she's going to, really be able to step into who she is. And then, you're going to see this whole new level of production. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting is we look at sometimes, are people coachable or not? Now, when we get stuck in something, and this is me, you, like everybody, sometimes we get stuck in something and we can't see, and we need that outside person to help us, ask us questions so that we can get to a place where we can see the difference. But one of the things that I love with working with you when we think about coachable is, like, I'll, send you a video or we'll talk about something, and your brain immediately goes to, like, ooh, right? Like, it's very fun to work with you because it very much like we're talking and you go, ooh.
I never run out of ideas. I don't know if you're...
but it's the implementing of the ideas too. Yeah. So it's the, and I think that's part of it when you being coachable is there are going to be times where, and there have been times where, like, I've asked something and you're like, no, we do it for this reason. Okay, great. That actually works. Keep doing that. And yet it's that always being willing to go, just because something has worked for us doesn't mean that's going to be the same thing, right? What's that, what got us here may not be the thing that gets us here. And you're always looking at how do you become more? How do you, do better? It's not even about better. I guess it is about better, but like, who am I becoming? And I think that's a huge part of any coaching relationship. Is your coach, who are they looking to become? And then who are you looking to become? And does that complement?
Absolutely. And because coaching is not a one size fits all.
No.
I've had coaches that, they have people that love them, and I have and I've had them, and I was like, I can't get away from you fast enough. Not everybody's a fit, right?
No. Well, and that's like not every leader is not every leader is the best leader for that person. Not every follower is the best follower for that leader. So 100%. So, and then there's different time frames. Like, I've coached people that I've coached for 5 years. I've coached other people that at 2 years. I've had other people that for, 90 days, because depending on what we were working on, it's like, okay, Now it's time for next. Or whenever I'm coaching people, if we're not the right fit, I'm going to get out of relationship with you really quickly. And it's not because you're bad or I'm bad or anything like that. It's are we gelling? Are we, like you wanted to get to here. Am I going to be the best person to help you get there?
Yeah.
And I remember I had one client that she's been with me for years, and she's phenomenal, and we're growing and growing and growing. And I look at her business, and because I'm always looking at her numbers, and we had made some adjustments, made some changes. We're going through this, and I looked at it, and I was like, "Yep." I said, "It's Amanda." And I was like, "Hey, I think it's time for us to go and you're ready to experience another coach,
the next coach, right?
The next perspective." And at first, she was like, "Well, no," and I said, "Look, we can."
Are you firing me as a friend? Yeah.
And I was like, "Look, we can create a 90-day plan." I said, "And now that, I want you to be thinking about that as well." And it wasn't like 2 calls later, and she was like, "I think you're right." And I'm like, "Yeah." Oh, yeah. So and the thing is, and what's, she sent me like 3 referrals after she transitioned out of my schedule because it was time.
Well, she sent you a referral because she now trusted you.
Yes.
Because you did something that she didn't know was in her best interest, but you as a coach saw it because you had the 10,000 foot view, right? You're on a helicopter looking at the mountain rather than being on the mountain climbing up. And that's probably the best analogy that I could ever give with coaching is like if you were climbing Mount Everest, the best cheat sheet in the world would be somebody flying behind you in a helicopter being like, "Whoa, you don't want to go up that path. There's a block right there. Take a right."
That's right.
Take a right. That's what coaching is. It's also encouragement. It's accountability. Did you do what you say you were going to do?
Yep. And if you didn't, and I think sometimes with accountability, people think that's going to be like, I'm going to yell and scream. I've actually had a client that one time told me like, "Oh, well, I want to coach, but I want to coach to yell and scream at me." I'm like, "Whoa, that's not me."
Yeah.
Because that only works for a small amount of time. And I'm like, "Look, I'm here to help you grow in our thinking and grow, not become a child." Right.
Right. And
so it is, but what accountability is, okay, you had the intention of doing this. What got in the way? Well, first off, was that really the goal, or did you think that was supposed to be the goal?
Yeah.
What got in your way? What do we need to learn? What habits do we need to develop to make that work? And that's the accountability, instead of just like, I didn't do it, and it just, you're not looking at it.
Right.
So I think to me, the accountability is what happened, what caused it, what got in the way. Based on that, what adjustments do we need to make so that you can still get the goal that you're looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that part, like, was that ever really the goal? Like, you ask people their goal, like, I want to make $1 million. Like, dude, you work 20 hours a week. Come on. You haven't even mastered this yet, right? You're a new agent. You're going to make $1 million a year? And you're not committed to actually going to put in a full work day or making a cold call or knocking on the door?
That's well, and you don't even know what $1 million is, right? Like, it's just
chunk that down. All right.
That's right.
How many houses do you have to sell to hit $1 million? Well, it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and where does it, how does it mesh with your life? So I think about, let's say that you are a single mom and your kids are young. You might have a goal, we want to make sure it's an and. So where do we need to put in your business so that you are, you have the business that you want and the life with your family that you want? Because now what you might discover is, okay, now the kids are in school, we're ready to level up. The same thing with a dad, right? My kids are this age, I want to be here, and then I want to, and so there's a time and a season for all of that. Or maybe you're the mom or dad with young kids, or maybe not, and yet you want to go here. Okay, then now we're going to talk about, what does that leverage look like? What is that? Because I think a lot of times, there is, there's a model where before you hire an admin, we want to play red light, green light. So a lot of times we talk when you're on pace to do around 30 transactions. With that said, sometimes people get that really stuck in their head, and I'm like, wait a minute. That is a model, and to keep the most profit in your business, sure. But I will tell you about me. The day that I can afford an admin, whether I've sold 1 or 2 or 10, I'm hiring them.
Yeah, because I want them to do everything that I don't want to do. Like, just to be clear, I don't want to pay my own bills. I don't want to do my own paperwork. I want to go in, consult, train, coach, talk to people, consult people. And when that's over with, my job's over. I get paid to talk. Right. Someone else gets paid to do everything that I walk into a house and I'm like, I do my presentation. I talk to them about our marketing plan, our pricing plan. I present and consult pricing. And then they're like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, perfect. Somebody will be in touch.
Right.
See you later. On to the next house.
Yeah. Well, and the flip side of that also, because it depends on, and this is where the cool part about coaching and having that coach that will ask deep questions and find out what's really you're looking for. There is a lady that runs a very phenomenal team that she is, if you were looking at like a behavioral style, she's more of it on the operations side. But she had a different goal financially. And so what she actually ended up building out was she hired agents. And there's tons of ways to get to your goal. Make sure that you have a coach that will ask enough questions and help you determine where you want to be, how you want to get there. But yeah, it's like day one leverage. We have one agent on your team right now that she has hired somebody to drive her around. She does tons of business. That was a great piece of leverage.
Yeah. She picked a college kid, doesn't need a whole lot of money, and their job is just to drive her around so that she can sit on the other side of the seat and make tons of phone calls, right? And then the other piece is, so not only like consulting with me and THLT, but Alivia is also consulting with all Lilly companies and all of our affiliated business partners. And that's been really cool. I've already heard great reviews. Now, you've gotten much deeper with me than you have with them so far, because I know you're going into like week 2 and 3 with them right now. But I know that the leaders of those companies, Daniel, our operations partner on the roofing side, I mean, he is just thrilled because Daniel's very coaching and learning based. And he's like, this is the best move you have ever made. Thank you. You know,
to hear.
And he's so excited. And I know Jen is as well, and everybody else involved. So if you are out there looking for a business coach, it could be you're a business owner. It could be real estate sales. It could be really any kind of sales. She's going to train roofers right now.
If you're an entrepreneur, because every business you have sales. Heck, if you wanted to sell a book, right? You have sales in your business. You have operations. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you're here and you want to get to here, reach out. And we're going to have different levels of coaching, meaning we're going to have some that is depending on if it's a particular thing, and maybe we have some videos for you, things to that effect. Because I'm looking at taking on probably 10 one-on-one clients at most, because my intent is to like what I did with you is to really get deep in your business to make sure that when we are creating things, we're creating so that it works for your entire world.
Yep.
Because I don't want your business to look great and your health to be like terrible. Yeah. Or your, though we do work on one at a time, right? We got to be really, like you said earlier, we've got to be really intentional about which one what we're working on to get you there. But it really is, if you're looking, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be, reach out. We may have an opportunity.
Yeah. Some other things that we're looking at doing are group coaching opportunities. We're also looking at packaging up all of THLT systems, listing systems, admin systems, all of those things. And, just to tell y'all what that looks like, and this has been, THLT has been the number one real estate sales team in Louisiana for 3 years straight. And not by a little bit. Like, we're beating our competition by 100 and 200 units to get to the next person. Yeah. And we're talking about completely packaging up those systems and helping you grow your real estate business. And I promise you, if we can do it here with our numbers and our low commissions, then if you're in Texas, if you're in a large market like Tampa or wherever, yes, I promise you these systems are going to work, because you're going to have to learn how to micromanage your P&L in order to run off of ours. So whenever you have that level of income, it's going to be absolutely insane.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because a lot of it, there's those pieces of, like we talked about, that it's another skill level. Okay, I want to bring somebody in. Mm-hmm. Well, instead of going, okay, I want to bring somebody in, well, what's that first 100 days look like with, what's that first 100 days look like with my new admin? How do I make sure that they are set up for success? Well, these are the things. Okay. What about my next salesperson that I bring in? What about this? How do I know if it's time to bring in a salesperson or an admin? Yeah. Right. Okay. Now I have that person. How do I know if they're doing what they need to do to take us to the next level? And so we'll have those systems to be able to plug and play to be able to share with folks.
Yeah. Some other things is some subscription coaching models that we're looking at. We got a plethora of things that we're looking for, but the main thing that guys need to get out of this is that if you need to take your business to the next level, I personally endorse Alivia Roberts. She's been phenomenal for my business. Our agents, she's been coaching with our agents for like 2 weeks now. And we're talking about people who don't like to show up and get coached, right? Yeah. On our Zoom call the other day, it was 2 agents that said, I am extremely thankful for Alivia. They know this is going to take their real estate careers to the next level because they're getting something they weren't getting. And most people don't even know what they're missing. That's right.
A lot of it is. And I loved Taylor had asked to meet with me about something. And Taylor has not been in business very long. She already did 30 transactions last year. And phenomenal lady. And one of the coolest pieces is she asked me, hey, can I talk to you about this? And I said, well, it's funny. We're going to be talking about that today at 11. And she's like, great, I'm going to be, or 12. And she was going to be there. And it was that next level of communication with people. And so she's taken tremendous amount of notes. And we talk about being coachable. The cool part is she was able to immediately, like she already had a system. We were able to go deeper into that system. And then she used it that very afternoon. I asked her, like, how did that go? And it was, so that's that really key piece of like, I've learned this. What's that next step?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Okay.
All right.
That's it.
I have a listing appointment.
All right.